The Texas Gulf Coast is undergoing rapid expansion as billions of dollars flow into oil, gas, LNG, and ammonia projects that fuel exports and create jobs. Ports like Houston, Corpus Christi, and Port Arthur anchor this expansion. Texas Governor Greg Abbott attributes the growth in the energy sector along the Gulf Coast as being a key driver to the Texas economy, and that includes Enbridge's Ingleside Energy Center, the nation's largest crude oil export terminal. Enbridge is expanding its storage capacity, deepening its channel to handle larger tankers, and is the proposed site of a multi-billion-dollar blue ammonia facility, which could diversify exports further, but it also has raised concerns over environmental impact and community safety that we're going to be talking about today. And joining me to discuss this proposed new ammonia plant are Stephanie Hadacek, the project specialist with Project YaREN, and Dolly Gonzalez-Trolley with Voices for Coastal Bend Energy. Stephanie, Dolly, thank you for joining me today. Stephanie, let me start with you. Tell me, who is YaREN and what is Project YaREN?
So YaREN is a joint venture project between Enbridge and Yara. It's a proposed low-carbon blue ammonia production, storage, and export facility that will be built within Enbridge's terminal there in Ingleside.
And Enbridge is in the energy space. They do a lot of export of crude oil there in Ingleside.
Right. So Enbridge Ingleside is actually the largest exporter of crude oil in the United States by volume. So yeah, that's huge. They run a lot of oil through there.
And they're not in the ammonia space. That's Yara's specialty.
Correct. Yeah. So Enbridge kind of has the expertise of the logistics and the movement and storage of products, and they have the space, the real estate. They have the deep water docks because it will be for export. And Yara has the expertise in the production of ammonia, and that's what really makes it a good relationship.
So tell me how you came to this project and what exactly you do at Enbridge.
So I was brought on to do community and stakeholder engagement and really just to help the community get to know who we are. I've lived in the Coastal Bend for about 5 years, and personally, workforce development is near and dear to my heart. I've been doing a lot of work in workforce development within our surrounding communities, including Ingleside, for about the last 4 or 5 years. So that's kind of why I'm excited about being on this project so early. I really want to help the community get to know who we are, want to get the kids to know, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. These are the jobs that we're going to have, and then kind of get them a roadmap to, how to come work for us one day. Because we do plan to bring up to 200 jobs to the community. And for a community like Ingleside, that's huge. And so we definitely want them to be prepared. And so my role is really just to like I said, help the community get to know who we are. So I do a lot of one-on-one presentations. I do a lot of outreach and just be present in the community. I'm definitely not hard to find. So if they want to know about this project, they can find me pretty much anywhere.
So, Dolly, you and I have known each other for a long time in other capacities, but tell me how you came to Voices for Coastal Bend Energy.
Well, Eddie, I've spent the last 25 years working in the political space and now rolling into more of an advocacy role. I'm an education advocate. I like to advocate for my community, and I feel very strongly about advocating for positive development in the Coastal Bend. That's going to be my home, and it has been my home for the last 10 years, and I plan on being my home for the rest of my life. And so I feel strongly about seeing it grow in a responsible and positive way. I'm on the local school board, and so I feel strong about advocating for education and for our workforce development, just like Stephanie said. A lot of our kids need to see that there's a really positive future for them there in the Coastal Bend, and there's some great jobs. Industry is the lifeblood of our region, and if we need to support responsible growth in our region. And so I think this is a natural fit. We'll talk more about Voices for Coastal Bend Energy and exactly what kind of coalition that is, but it really speaks to everything I'm passionate about advocating for.
Well, let's talk about VCBE, Voices for Coastal Bend Energy. What is their main focus?
So
if you can't figure it out from the name.
Right. So Voices for Coastal Bend Energy, or VCBE, is a grassroots coalition of community leaders, working families, small business owners, and industry stakeholders who are really advocating for responsible growth in the Coastal Bend. We are sponsored and supported by the EEIA, which is the Energy and Equipment and Infrastructure Alliance, which is a 501c6 trade association. So we're founded to support transformative projects that are going to be helping to grow our region. And Project YaREN fits right into that model, and so that's why we're supporting this project. I'm out in the community doing a lot of community outreach work, just like Stephanie is, presenting how we can mobilize our community through recruiting people for written comment, public comment at meetings, signing on to our website, joining our social media movement, things like that, coming to events to support the energy industry. And this isn't just the industry stakeholders at large. This is the whole pipeline of suppliers, vendors, subcontractors, specialists that go into building those big industry stakeholders. Because like Stephanie said, this project in particular will provide 200 permanent jobs, but we're talking about 4,000 jobs in the construction of the project, which is a huge economic boom.
And the indirect jobs that you just mentioned through suppliers and supply chain.
And then the restaurants, the hotels, everything else that comes along with a whole community being lifted up with a big new project coming in.
It's an economic multiplier. Mm-hmm. So VCBE has come out in support of this project.
That's right.
Okay. So, Stephanie, let's talk about the project. Mm-hmm. Where is it going to go? It's going to go somewhere in the footprint of your terminal in Ingleside.
Correct. So this, where Enbridge is located now, it was formerly an old Navy base, turned oil export terminal. And so it will be built within the fence line of the terminal there.
And this, to Dolly's point, if this were to be approved, you're going to have a whole network of support through vendors, logistics people, parts, suppliers, and all of that.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So tell me, when you start working on a project like this, the number one question that people ask is why ammonia? The Gulf Coast has been known for oil, crude oil. It's been known for natural gas. And it's especially been known for LNG, liquefied natural gas. So why ammonia?
That's one of my favorite questions to answer because full transparency, I'm an oil and gas background. I knew ammonia. It's under the sink. We use it to clean. That's about the extent of what I knew about ammonia, right? And so over the last year, doing my own research, and I've learned a lot. While ammonia, it has been produced for a very long time, I think almost 100 years, and has so many different uses from, agriculture, right, for our food supply. But now we're starting to see emerging technologies when it comes to our energy evolution, right? And so we're trying to find ways to, reduce our carbon footprint, create cleaner fuels. And ammonia is something that's leading that effort. So I've actually heard it called a suitcase for hydrogen. So ammonia is actually a reversible reaction, and it's more stable to transport ammonia versus hydrogen by itself. And so it can get to where it's going. They can reverse the reaction, extract the hydrogen, and again, it's a cleaner fuel source. And I think that's one of the struggles is that, our community's not kind of relating energy with our project, and that's exactly what it is.
And it's blue ammonia, which is different from ammonia nitrate.
Correct. That was one of the first pieces of confusion that I started tackling was what will y'all be producing there? And there were some community members that were under the assumption that we were going to be producing ammonium nitrate, which is a fertilizer. And
highly combustible.
And yes, and there's a few incidences that have happened over the years with ammonium nitrate. And so while ammonia that we'll be producing is a component to ammonium nitrate, that is not what we will be producing here. So you may have heard ammonia talked about in gray, blue, or green. So gray ammonia is the traditional way you produce ammonia. Carbon's released to the atmosphere. Blue ammonia is the carbon capture element to it. So the carbon's captured, it is piped off-site, stored underground. And then green ammonia, it's a little bit different process. It's very freshwater intensive, uses a lot of electricity, but at the end of the day has no carbon footprint. All of those processes create the same product. It's just the process by which it's made. It is liquid anhydrous ammonia.
this seems to fit in with what the Coastal Bend is known for, and it doesn't seem to be that different than all the other projects that are on the Gulf Coast. It's an energy product that, in this particular case, 100% of what you'll be producing at Ingleside will be for export, correct?
Correct.
So 100% of this project is for export. I know in many European countries, they are in desperate search for fuel sources to replace their aging coal plants. But so how do you see this project fitting in with the economy of the Gulf Coast? Because there's as the governor has said, the Gulf Coast is a key economic driver to the whole state's economy.
Right. I mean, the port of Corpus Christi is literally booming right now. We're the number one crude oil export gateway of the United States. The port's the number 2 in LNG exports, as you have alluded to, and it's the number 3 largest export port for crude oil in the world. So, this is just another energy export. We're, adding to their portfolio. Enbridge is a huge presence already in the port of Corpus Christi. This is a known responsible player in the energy corridor that is the port of Corpus Christi. And so, as VCBE, we are promoting, again, I'll keep going back to that term, responsible growth with a responsible known partner that is already has a presence there, and I think this is speaks to the capital expansion, the growth that's been happening there in the port over the last decade, and the that it's open for business and people, companies, partners want to come to the Coastal Bend to grow and grow their business. And we want to be the voice for the, I believe, 60 to 75% of the public that does support that growth. In recent years, I'll be honest, there has been a minority of people who have been vocal about not welcoming that growth. But I've seen polls and I've talked to people, and anecdotally being out there in the community, I think the majority of our community does support this kind of growth. They are the large, not just this one project. I mean, in general, this industrial community is the largest employer in our region. So it makes up the most jobs in our region. Is the largest economic driver, as you mentioned earlier, and so I think this is just naturally what our resources lend us to have to offer. Not the only thing, obviously, we have wonderful, tourism industry. We have a lot of other things to offer, but this is one thing we do have, and it's a natural fit to make sure we're planning ahead and growing in the right way.
So, Stephanie, you talked about being in charge of stakeholder outreach and community outreach. Tell me about the types of groups that you go visit with, and what are the most common questions that people have about this project?
So when I first started and started kind of understanding the misinformation that was out there, the confusion, even just the location of this facility. Some people were thinking it was going to be built across the street from the primary school. And when I say across the street, I mean like a stone's throw, literally. And so I'm like, okay, that's Project 101. Let's go back to the basics. And I really just felt like we just needed to start our relationship over, right? Like, hey, we're Project YaREN, you're Ingleside. Nice to meet you. This is who we are. And so that's how I approached it. And again, workforce development is kind of what, is important to me. And so I spent a lot of time going into the school districts, talking to the welding students, talking to the millwright students, talking to the instrument students. And again, sharing this is who we are, this is what we do, this is why we do it. And then again, this is kind of the roadmap to eventually come and hopefully get a job with us one day. Because I really think back to how I grew up. I grew up 15 minutes from an industrial town. I had no clue who they were. I had no clue what they did, much less that I could go down the road and get a really great job with a really great company. I felt if I wanted to be successful, I had to move to a big city, and that is not true. And so that was kind of happening there in the Coastal Bend as well. I'm like, we need to create a connection between industry and our school districts, right? That's our future workforce. And so that's where I focus a lot of my attention on. I also tell people that, I did not take this job for a paycheck. I took it because I saw an opportunity to just change the way projects like this come to life in their communities, right? And so I feel like I've done that. I want the community to know, I tell them every time after my presentations, I'm like, as much as I know today about this project is what you know about this project now. And so aside from, doing student outreach, just general community members in general, I learned very early on that there's going to be those 8 or 10 people that are going to oppose no matter what you say,
Anything.
what you do. They won't come in and meet with you no matter, how much you ask them to come and meet with you. And so I just kind of had to put them in a box on a shelf, and just kind of say, okay, let me focus on the people who either
Who are curious.
don't know what's going on, right? Or, again, want to learn, do have questions. And so that's kind of how I approached it. And I would do a lot of one-on-one meetings, just getting people to come in and visit and sit down and talk and ask questions. We also do group meetings. I've done a presentation for our volunteer fire department. I've done one for the police department. I've done one for our education foundation, just any local groups there that, want information about the project.
So I want to ask you about water. Dolly, the Corpus Christi City Council recently voted down a desal plant, and I assume, Stephanie, that this is a question that comes up a lot, is what kind of water will you be consuming? Virtually all of Texas, including the Gulf Coast, is going through severe water shortages. So what kind of water will this facility be using from Ingleside?
So for the normal day-to-day operations of this facility, for the production of ammonia, we will not be relying on City of Ingleside water or municipal water. We will be sourcing water from the bay. The majority of that water, about 90% of the water that we bring in, will be used for our cooling towers, so to regulate temperatures. It will not touch the ammonia process. It'll cycle through and be discharged back into the bay. And we will follow strict regulations from the temperature of the water, the salinity of the water, the placement of the discharge. Again, the way we bring it in from the bay is the way we will be returning it to the bay. About 10% of that water will be demineralized, and it'll be used for our boilers, so to create steam.
So traditionally in energy plants like the one that's being proposed, some of the concerns that come up is the proximity to neighborhoods and the proximity to schools. So what can you tell me about how close this plant is to schools and neighborhoods, and what your safety plans are?
Right. So the site itself is about 1.7 miles from the school, from the Ingleside Primary School. And that was one of the first pieces of confusion, misinformation that I tackled, was the location of this facility. It's not across the street. It is, in fact, almost 2 miles away. Also important to note is, ammonia has been produced for a very long time. It's been produced safely for a very long time. In the last 20 years, we haven't seen an incident that has affected anybody off-site. And so at the same time, this product will be for export. So we will be producing it right there in the terminal. It'll be put on a ship and shipped out overseas. So we won't be trucking ammonia through the community. We won't be putting it on rail cars. It'll all be produced right there in the terminal, loaded on a ship, and shipped out.
So, Dolly, this is a concern that a lot of the environmental community tends to bring up. But in this particular case, there are different actors in the environmental community. So who is bringing these issues up regarding this plant?
Right. So in the last few years, our whole region has seen an increase in activity from a lot of these groups that you're talking about. There's a coalition of those groups. We've got the Campaign for the Environment. We've got the Coastal Watch Association. There's a Coastal Action Network. There's a couple of others that are all working together with the same mission of really stopping any growth in the coastal bend. And there's different projects that they specifically target. These groups are being funded by groups with specific agendas from the East and West Coast, think tanks and foundations that are funding, if you track the funding. And what really bothers me about that is that those funders are not going to step foot in the coastal bend. They have a specific agenda to stop growth. and in the name of environmental causes, but they've never been to the Coastal Bend. They've never stepped foot in Corpus Christi or Ingleside or San Patricio County, and don't know what our people want or what our workforce needs or how our economy is driven. And what I am advocating for and trying to spread the message about is local control. Really, we are trying to make sure that our community is aware of all of this and that this agenda is being driven by outside interest. And not to say there's not some local people who feel strongly about it and they have the right to advocate, but like I said before, I think the majority of our community does support responsible growth. And they need to know that there are people coming in, groups coming in, funding these efforts that will never be from our area. And we really want to advocate for local control, local communities advocating for their voice to their local elected officials and allowing local elected officials to make the choices that are right for their local communities.
This is something that the out-of-town, out-of-state environmental groups who are paid to come to the region are not always aware of, that a system does exist. So tell me, do you meet with this group on a regular basis to be able to develop your emergency plans?
Right. So San Patricio County does have a system in place that alerts residents to anything that might be going on in the area. So we've already joined their local emergency planning group where they meet regularly, and it's this group is attended by stakeholders such as your elected officials, your fire departments, your RTFCs, your Coast Guard is there, our industry partners are there, and it's all based on, the safety of our community. One of the current concerns that I hear quite often is Ingleside has a volunteer fire department. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the personnel to be able to respond in the event of an emergency at your site. And so we will not be relying on the city of Ingleside to respond to anything that might be going on within the facility. We will have our own internal response team, and then in the event we need additional assistance, we will partner with an organization similar to RTFC, a refinery terminal fire company, who is specialized in responding to incidences at facilities similar to ours. They have the equipment, they have the trained personnel. So again, we will not be relying on the city of Ingleside. Now, they will know what our response plan is. We are working together and have created focus groups and we meet regularly, so they'll know what our response plan is, but we won't expect them to come into the facility to respond to anything that might be going on. So our first step is to go before Planning and Zoning Committee, and they will give a recommendation to City Council. We'll then go in front of City Council. There'll be two separate meetings, and then they will vote on the permit.
So, Dolly, you've already said that the Voices for Coastal Bend Energy will be supportive of this project and this application. Mm-hmm. What is your message that you'll be sharing with the community about this project?
Right. So now is our time to step into action. We are out communicating the process to our stakeholders, community groups, and recruiting voices to come and join us at these meetings. 3 different things specifically that we're trying to do. One, we're trying to drive people to submit public comments to the City of Ingleside portal. They have an online portal where citizens and stakeholders in the area can submit public comment in support of the project, and we're hoping that people will do that. And we've had quite an uptick in people doing that, which we're grateful for. 2, filling out written public comment on cards, letters of support. It's equating to a letter of support, something quick and easy that can either be taken by our group to City Council or can be mailed in and translate that support in writing for the project if they can't be there in person. And 3, joining us at these public meetings. At each of these public meetings, hopefully they'd be willing. These are citizens who would be willing to stand up and speak to their support of the project. But I understand that not everybody's comfortable doing that, and just having them lend their support and being there physically to join us in support would be really enormously helpful. And if citizens are interested in speaking up, that's what I'm there for, is to help lead the way, show them, that it's not an intimidating process, that, kind of help them with maybe coalescing their talking points and guiding them through that process and making it a little bit more comfortable for them. But we're hoping that as much as we've seen in the past, some of these environmental groups who have become very good at this process have shown up in numbers to protest certain projects, that we can show that there are just as many, actually a lot more people who do support projects like this, and that we want to show balance. And we want the city council to see that and all the committees that are deciding factors along the way to see that there is just as many voices, if not more, that are on the side of supporting projects like this.
Well, I think it's important for the people who live there and who work there and who raise their children there to have the biggest voice in how their community is run and who they recruit to come in and create jobs.
I do want to mention one more thing before we move on from that. I think the most immediate things, if people are listening and want to jump in and help and don't know really where to start, we have social media pages that are up and running. We have a Facebook page, Voices for Coastal Bend Energy. We have a website, same, voicesforcoastalbendenergy.com. There's a Take Action button on that page. All you have to do is drop in your email address and click a button saying you'd be willing to do 1, 2, or 3 of these things, and we will reach out to you and tell you how you can do it very easily. And of course, we have all the other social media channels, by the same name. So following along on any of those is an easy way to get started, and it will be yours truly that reaches out to you and gets you involved.
And Stephanie, what is the website for Project YaREN?
So it is projectyaren.com. And we're also on social media. We're on Facebook and LinkedIn as well.
And that's Project YaREN.com.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And, I don't want to equate this project to SpaceX. But, Dolly, a lot of the groups that are protesting Project YaREN were also in Brownsville opposing SpaceX coming to Boca Chica. And if you look at the economic impact that SpaceX has had on Brownsville and Cameron County, it's been tremendous. And so that's why in that particular case, it was the local community that won out. And I certainly hope that's the case in San Patricio County and Port Ingleside for this project. All right. So Stephanie Hadachek with Project YaREN and Dolly Gonzalez-Trolley with Voices for Coastal Bend Energy. Thank you both for joining.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks for having us.